Thursday, it will be exactly 2 years since President Bola Tinubu took the oath of office. He was confronted with Nigeria poised between promise and peril, teetering close to the precipice more than at any time in its history. Festering economic imbalances previously masked by oil revenue were drying up, and the failed subsidy regime was scrounging away the future earnings. Foreign exchange realignment had shattered long-standing currency anchors, and inflation eroded the purchasing power of millions of households across the country. While government officials and business elites praised the removal of subsidies and foreign exchange reforms as visionary, millions of Nigerians said the cost of survival has never been high as inflation surges, insecurity persists, and promised palliatives fall short. To take a close assessment of President Tinubu's 2 years in office, the question citizens will ask is whether we have fared better as a nation, what progress have been made. Joining us to assess how oil and gas sector has fared under the Tinubu administration is Olabode Sowunmi, Chief Executive Officer of Captrade Limited. He also serves as a consultant to the Senate Committee on Oil and Gas. Welcome to the show. Goodness me, Bonga is on street. We're having decisions reached as regards Bonga, the first Bonga, then the Bonga North. We're going to be having FID in a couple of years from now. Production is still been up and down. We've not gotten to the 2 million we talked about. But as we see it now, there's been a lot of problems also with the NNPC. The refinery they claimed they had fixed, all of a sudden we had that kerfuffle around it. In and around January, when we heard that the Warri refinery was shut down, we also hear that there's maintenance going on, and we spend over $2 billion, that's over $2 trillion on all of this. It's been a mixed match. Some will say triumphalism. Shell is pumping in about some $5 billion through the Bonga fields. Some will say we have not really achieved as much as we want to because we're still borrowing heavily because of oil revenue. What say you, sir?
Okay, good morning. Thanks for having me. Primarily, let's speak to Bonga that you mentioned. You know, sometimes we need to understand where we're coming from so that we can appreciate where we are. Bonga started as a production sharing contract in the 90s. Production sharing contract primarily because Nigeria could not afford joint venture at that time, which means we couldn't afford our own share of the proceeds of the investment. And so the oil companies, they put in their investments, and when they started to pump oil, we now had to share it, hence the name production sharing contract. But there was something peculiar about Bonga at that time. The production sharing contracts that were signed was for oil and not for gas. A couple of years later, NLNG started, and substantial part of the gas that went to NLNG came from Bonga. Now, you may not know, but because there wasn't a proper contract for gas, that Bonga, the amount that was escrowed on, the amount that came in from gas could not be made available to the nation. In fact, as at about 7 years ago, they had almost $1.6 billion that was in escrow on it. It was until the passage of the PIA and until the gas laws became into effect that situation was remedied. So, in terms of fiscal laws, in terms of policies, in terms of those things that are institutional that makes the system to work, that was a significant milestone that happened with this government. With respect to people feeling the impact of the investment and maybe the FID that will come in, it is infrastructure, so it takes some time. It's building roads, it's building pipelines, it's building underground wells and the related. But the good thing is that when it starts to come, it takes a while, it takes a long while, and people will feel the effect, irrespective of whether bad decisions are taken then. And that will affect the whole strata, because it means that you are going to have contractors who are going to do servicing, even food vendors, janitors. In the oil and gas industry is one place where a janitor can get a contract of about $1 million. So in terms of how it will affect everyone, those are fantastic news to be said. To be heard and to be said any which way you look at it.
Okay.
All right. Now, I want to look at one of the flagship initiatives of this administration in the oil and gas sector, which is CNG. Of course, we know that the target was 1 million vehicles by 2027. 2 years down the line, 2 more years to go. Is this initiative, this policy, this drive towards CNG, is it something that you think we should abandon at this stage, walk back and re-strategize? Or do you think we should continue to charge forward, move forward with it, and hope that by 2027 we will have achieved some of those goals? the CNG initiative, a win or a loss for this administration?
Okay, thank you for that as well. So when a child is struggling to grow, I mean, growth is a process. When a child struggles from the crawling to the walking stage and it falls down, I doubt that anybody will advise that you abandon it. So CNG is very much like petrol or even diesel. One of the reasons why you have petrol available everywhere is because the infrastructure for petrol has been built probably over the last 70 to 80 years, which means that every local government has a petrol station, has a road inlet to it, has the infrastructure is it. That's not the same for CNG. And the CNG infrastructure, the value chain, the supply chain that will make it available across the whole nation, is not going to happen in 3 to 5 years. In fact, it's not going to happen in 10 years. It's going to take some time, not because it's difficult, not because the technology is there, but because there is a financial implication to infrastructure. So are we going to say because somebody got pregnant in the first and the belly is not coming out in the first trimester, we should do an abortion? I sincerely doubt that. I think it is incumbent upon us to also understand the process so that we can trust the process to achieve for us. The benefits that are coming from CNG being adapted to Nigerians are immense and unique. Unique to the sense that we are an oil and gas producing nation. In fact, more of a gas producing nation than even an oil producing nation. It's going to be made cheaper, available to Nigerians. So there is a number of things that needs to be done. Where I think where the critical mass of pressure should be is on that presidential committee to put a lot more fire on their, for want of a better word, bomb, so that they can give us more information at the right time and we can be aware of what they are doing. But in terms of whether it is progress, definitely. In terms of whether they are moving at the speed that we want them to be, that becomes a judgment call, which we can only answer when we get more facts to what they are doing.
Okay, Bode, let me ask you this question. Fuel subsidy removal, refineries, Dangote refinery. President Tinubu, in the proposal to the National Assembly yesterday, was saying that one of the objectives of taking new loans and putting out new federal government bonds is to address challenges arising from fuel subsidy removal. But then we have Dangote refinery. Dangote refinery has again and again been reducing pump price. But the big elephant in the room is crude for Naira. What do you think about this, considering the fact that there have been issues between Dangote refinery and the federal government and the NMPDRA, which is the regulatory agency?
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I think there are a number of factors to be looked into here. When it comes to the issue of pricing, there is limitations to what any of the parties can do to remedy it, whether it be the Dangote refinery themselves, whether it be NNPC, whether it be the regulator, primarily because the key determining factor that makes these things relevant to people is the exchange rate of the Naira to the dollar. As long as those fluctuations are there, it doesn't matter so much whether it is reduced or not. It becomes the value of it. And an easy example is this. In 2005, I took a trip from Lagos to Gothenburg, northern Sweden, which is the home of Volvo, by the way. And the cost of that trip was about $8,200. Last year, I took the same trip, and it was about 2 million Naira. Now, it was about, 200,000 Naira in 2005, 2 million Naira last year. But the cost in terms of dollar remained the same. So who will we put pressure on to help reduce 2 million Naira to 200,000? It just doesn't work, simply because the exchange rate has significantly changed over that period. I think that is one issue that when the discussions is going about, that is Nigerians are not fully assimilating. And when you understand that those issues are there, and those are macroeconomic issues significantly outside the circle of influence of the industry, those are what is affecting that. In terms of the Dangote crude for Naira deal, it is one of those issues that have gone significantly political. Primarily because when you see those discussions happening, it is usually between Dangote and the NNPC, and sometimes there's intervention from the presidency. But meanwhile, because it is a regulatory issue, it ought to be the NMDPRA discussing with Dangote and other refineries. Because we are trying to build an industry. We are trying to build a system. Regulators and other institutions in that system must be given liberty to exercise their full authority and make some mistakes here and there so that they can be strong and independent. It is independent institutions that builds a strong system, that builds a strong nations. As long as those things are dependent on personalities, there are going to be significant limitations, which is going to make the industry weaker rather than stronger. And a weaker industry does not expand, does not build, does not attract investors, and does not become what we expect it to be. So those will be my comments on those.
All right, Sister Olabode Sowunmi.